In this video, we are going to be graphing standard form equations using intercepts. Okay, so we basically have two options when we graph a standard form equation, and this is one of them. Okay, now the intercepts, there's two intercepts on a graph that is a line. Okay, now we're going to work later in the year with graphs that aren't lines, but for right now, they're all lines. And so here's what you need to know. The x-intercept, this is the point where the line, whatever the graph we're talking about, meets or intercepts the x-axis. Okay, now how do I find the x-intercept? Here's the thing. I'm going to show you why. I plug in 0 for y. Okay, and here's why you can plug in 0 for y. Because the x-intercept is always going to be a point that's a number and then 0 for the y value. Why? Because it's always going to be a point that's on the x-axis. So think about these points, right? Like this is, I'm just making up numbers here. This is, could be -2, 0. This could be 4, 0, right? This could be 1, 0, whatever it is. But notice that if I have a point that's on the x-axis, the y value has to be 0. That's just the way that the point values work, right? Now for the y-intercept, it's all just kind of the opposite, right? This is the point where the line, and we've seen y-intercepts before. X-intercept is like a little bit of a new concept, right? But it's actually just the same thing as the y-intercept. This is where the point where the line meets the y-axis. And here, it's, like I said, it's just the opposite. You're going to plug in 0 for x to find it. Why? Because any point that's on the y-axis, think about all these points, right? Here's, like, this could be 0, -4. This could be 0, 1. This could be 0, 3. Notice the x value is always 0. So the y-intercept is always 0 for the x value, comma, a number. Okay? So that's what these intercepts are. So how do I graph a line using intercepts? Well, you have to remember that to graph a line, you just need 2 points, right? You only need 2 points to graph a line. So like when we had slope-intercept, we would graph the y-intercept, and then we would just rise and run, and we'd have a second point, and we'd have our line. Okay, so here's our first equation. Now, remember, if I only need 2 points, then the 2 intercepts would totally work, right? I could just find the x-intercept and find the y-intercept and then just graph them and then connect them with a line. So I'm going to show you that process. Okay, so first here in this equation, I'm going to find the x-intercept. I'm going to find the y-intercept. And I'm going to just sketch the graph on my paper. When you work in Edge Elastic, obviously you'll be able to make a more exact graph. But so how do I find the x-intercept? Well, let's just check your notes. It's the point where the line meets the x-axis, and here's what we know. We have to plug in 0 for y. Because why? Because in any point on the x-axis, the y value is 0. So for the x-intercept, watch what I'm doing. I'm taking this exact equation, but I'm plugging in 0 for y. Okay? So I just plugged in 0 where I saw the y. See? Here it was 2 times y, here it's 2 times 0. So 2 times 0 is just 0, right? That's 2 times 0 is 0. I could write 5x plus 0 equals 20. Let's skip that step. Let's just write 5x equals 20, because if I wrote 5x plus 0, then I would be like, oh, that doesn't mean anything, and I would just write this. Okay, so now I'm going to solve, right? I'm dividing by 5 on both sides. I get x equals 4. So my x-intercept, it's a point on the graph. And at that point, my x value is 4. And what's my y value? My y value is 0. Remember, I plugged in 0 for y. Right? So my x-intercept is the point on the graph for 0. Okay? So I can even just sketch this graph right now. And the point for 0 is right here. Okay? That's my x-intercept. How about my y-intercept? My y-intercept, check my notes, plug in 0 for x. So I'm going to do kind of the same, similar process, right? But here, notice I'm writing exactly this equation, except instead of where the x is, I'm plugging in a 0. So 5 times 0 is 0. So adding 0, that doesn't do anything. So this just ends up being 2y equals 20. So then if I divide by 2 on both sides, I get y equals 10. So this is a point where my y value is 10 and my x value is 0. Remember, I made the x value 0. That was a choice that I made to plug in 0 for x and then figure out what y was. So there's this point, 0, 10. Okay, so that's way up here, right? And here I'm just sketching. And then look, here's my line. Okay, remember you only need 2 points to graph a line. So there it is, 0, 10, 4, 0. I actually probably put this a little bit too far over, right? But there's my line. Let's do one more example. Okay, we'll just throw in some science here. Right, which just, we just got to be careful with our, whenever we throw some negatives in, we just got to be careful not to lose track of them. Okay, but it's the same process. I'm going to find the x-intercept. And how do I find the x-intercept? I plug in 0 for y. So 6 times 0 is 0. So this becomes negative 3x equals negative 15. So if I want x by itself, I'm dividing by negative 3. Negative divided by negative is positive, so x equals 5. So here, my x value equals 5, and my y value equals 0. That's my x-intercept. Okay, if I come over here, start my graph. Okay, 5, 0. Just put it right here. Okay, my y-intercept. Remember what I do? I plug in 0 for x. Okay, so this becomes 6y equals negative 15. I'm dividing by 6. Okay, y equals. Now a negative divided by a positive is a negative. And 15 divided by 6 is 2.5, 2.5. Okay, so here my x value is 0. Remember I plugged in 0 for x. And my y value is negative 2.5. Okay, so that's my y-intercept. So where's that? Well, so 0 and then down 2.5. So like I'm just kind of eyeballing it here on Edge Elastic. Obviously you can graph it more accurately. But there's my point and there's my line. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so make sure you reference your notes, right? For the x-intercept, you plug in 0 for y. For the y-intercept, you plug in 0 for x.